RPN, the Roddenberry Podcast Network.
Today's daily Star Trek news is supported by listeners like you, patrons through Patreon. Find out more and add your support at patreon.com/Daily Star Trek News. Hello and welcome to your Daily Star Trek News from the Roddenberry Podcast Network. I'm Allison Pitt, and today is Tuesday, August 25th, 2020. On today's show, Star Trek Fleet Command announces that it will expand to add Prime Timeline content. Alex Kurtzman talks about short treks, Michael Giacchino, and why he wants to show us a better future. And I've got this week's Trek trivia. All of that coming up next. The award-winning mobile game Star Trek Fleet Command will be expanding the fleet this September. Viacom CBS and gaming leader Scopely announced yesterday that the popular game will be the first and only mobile Star Trek game to include every timeline in the Star Trek universe. You heard that right. Beginning on September 8th, otherwise known as Star Trek Day, a robust slate of storylines, characters, ships, and more from across the franchise will be integrated into this top-grossing MMO strategy game, which until now has exclusively featured the Kelvin timeline films produced between 2009 and 2016. The expansion comes as Star Trek Fleet Command has risen in popularity since launching in November of 2018. Just how popular is it? On average, 78% of all players are playing 7 days a week, with a mind-blowing average of 4 hours of gameplay each day. Players have fought 5.8 billion in-game battles, and the game has generated more than $250 million in lifetime revenue. Star Trek is a multi-generational franchise that continues to generate new iterations to meet the needs of its ever-growing loyal and passionate fan base, said Pam Kaufman, president of Global Consumer Products at Viacom CBS. With this first-of-its-kind partnership, we're able to harness the combined power of the beloved brand to give gamers a unique opportunity to create their own new adventures, utilizing an exciting title from an exceptional partner like Scopely. Scopely's directed-by-consumer format gives players the ability to select their own crew, missions, and even in-game alliances, with player decisions impacting the intersecting Star Trek storylines as new content is added over the next several months. Star Trek Fleet Command is created and published by Scopely and Digit, a Scopely studio, and is available as a free download on iOS via the App Store and on Android via Google Play. And now let's talk Emmys. Star Trek boss Alex Kurtzman continues to make the interview rounds as part of CBS All Access's Emmys FYC, or For Your Consideration pitch. Deadline published an interview with the executive producer in which the conversation focused on Star Trek short treks, as it has in the last few interviews that he's done. Star Trek Short Treks has been nominated for the Emmy Award for Outstanding Short-Form Comedy or Drama Series. It's a first for the franchise and one that Kurtzman seems to see as validation of what he's been trying to do with Trek for the past several years. "I think the mission is to make the world better," Kurtzman said. Roddenberry's vision of this was, "I'm going to create something that can show us the best of who we are and can act as a compass that we can follow toward a future that's better than the one we're living in now. So that's the mission, right? Let's show people a future that's better." Kurtzman pointed to Pixar as a particular inspiration for the work he's done on short treks. "I really am astounded by the work that Pixar has been able to do, really across the board. Their shorts are so powerful, and I always marvel at the fact that they can make you feel so much in so little time." Kurtzman also revealed in the interview that some of the credit for the action of the animated short treks came from a somewhat unlikely place: composer Michael Giacchino. Giacchino is best known as an Oscar-winning composer, having created the memorable music for a number of treasured films, including Up, for which he won the Oscar in 2009, The Incredibles, Rogue One, A Star Wars Story, and of course J.J. Abrams' Kelvin timeline Star Trek films. Kurtzman has worked on and off with Giacchino since the series Alias, and Kurtzman said he drew on Giacchino's experience in animation to help come up with the idea for the Short Treks episode Ephraim and Dot, which Giacchino directed. Kurtzman said of working with Giacchino, "He's one of my favorite composers on the planet, and he has such an extraordinary background in animation. But what's so great about Michael is that he has such an intuitive sense of where the emotion lies and where it lies rhythmically, as it relates to music." Kurtzman went on to talk more in depth about the production that goes into creating a Short Treks episode, as well as some hints about upcoming series like Star Trek Prodigy. About the several shows coming up in the future, he said, "The idea for us is that it isn't just about expansion for the sake of expansion. It's actually about exploring different corners of the universe. The idea being that each show should have its own unique identity, and you should not be thinking that you can get from one show what you can get in another." To read the whole lengthy interview for yourself, just head over to deadline.com. Now, I've got Trek Trivia Tuesday in just a moment, but first, a word from me. If you're already watching this show on YouTube, then hello! Thanks for tuning in. And if you're not, well, what are you waiting for? Daily Star Trek News on YouTube is the same show as you get on the audio podcast, but you get to see my face and visual aids when I have them. So the place to be is youtube.com/Daily Star Trek News. Drop me a comment to say hi, and be sure to subscribe so you don't miss a minute of the news. Once again, that's youtube.com/Daily Star Trek News, and a big thanks to you for supporting this show. And now, it's Trek Trivia Tuesday. Did you know, in the series premiere of Star Trek Voyager, Caretaker, Captain Catherine Janeway travels to a penal colony in New Zealand to pick up a member of her crew. That person is Tom Paris, who was sentenced to labor after being captured as a member of the rebel organization, the Maquis. During their conversation, Janeway reveals to Paris that she knows his father, which is one of the reasons she selected him to accompany her on Voyager's mission. So now a trivia question for you. How does Captain Janeway know Tom Paris's father? Find out on Friday's episode of Daily Star Trek News. Now, just one last thing before I go. If you happen to be free later this morning, then please tune in to the NPR radio show 1A at the1a.org. That's the number 1. Fellow Roddenberry Podcast Network host Grace Moore from Women at Warp will be joining the show between 11 and 12 to discuss Star Trek Lower Decks. And if you missed the live show, there should be a podcast out later too. Well, that's it for today's Daily Star Trek News from the Roddenberry Podcast Network. Don't forget to check out all the other great shows on the network at podcasts.roddenberry.com. Daily Star Trek News is produced by me, Allison Pitt, with selected stories by Chris Peterson. We're supported by people like you through Patreon. Find out how you can add your support at patreon.com/Daily Star Trek News. Sign up for the Daily Star Trek newsletter at dailystartreknews.com/contact. Get all the day's Star Trek news delivered straight to your inbox every weekday. And if email's not your thing, then don't forget to follow Daily Star Trek News on social media. We're at Daily Trek News on Twitter and Instagram. I'm back tomorrow with more of the Star Trek news you need to know, and this week in Trek history. And it's a fun one. I'm Allison Pitt. Live long and prosper.
Podcast.roddenberry.com, the Roddenberry Podcast Network.